today on a special edition of the group chat on the All Ball podcast with three guys that I turn to on and off the field. One of these guys was my former teammate in Natey Behar. Other is my current teammate in Juwan Brescacin. And last but not least, hopefully he's my future teammate in the media world, Justin Dunk, the CFL top info man. What's up, fellas? I'll start with you, Juwan. What's up, man?
Not much. How you doing?
Good, man. Happy to have you on. Nate, how you doing, man?
Good. Just living right now. Enjoying life.
Enjoying life. And Justin, what's up?
Safe. Happy to be on with the All Ball podcast, man.
Let's get it. It's your second time. You're the second time guest, so you're doing something right.
Okay. We'll keep it going.
All right. So, you guys know I usually do like hype intros for my guests, and this is a group chat edition, so it might take all day knowing that you guys are all upstanding guys. So I'm going to get into this since we have a lot to cover. So the league had a self-imposed deadline of July 23rd. Then we moved to July 24th. Then now they're saying next week. Juwan, I'll start with you. How are you feeling with all this movement, the goalpost shifting?
Honestly, I've been trying to be patient given everything that's going on, but I feel like when someone gives you a deadline and they still don't have any information, especially when it's dealing with guys' lives and profession, and kind of making our job harder to kind of figure out what we want to do. Like, do we want to keep training? Do we want to find a job? It makes things more difficult. And I know guys like you have kids. I don't have kids, but we all have our different situations going on. And I would have appreciated some information on the deadline. And, to not have that, it kind of changes your view on things. So, yeah, that's where I'm coming from.
Nate, what about you, man?
Yeah, I mean, I think I've been probably more pessimistic than the average player from the end of this whole time. Just with the nature of everything that's going on. I don't know. The deadline was a deadline, but I didn't expect much from it. I mean, I knew that these things are fluid. It's not like there was actually any governing laws that were going to hold them to it. So they can continue to push that. I'm sure that'll continue to get pushed. It is what it is. I mean, they're the organization that pays us and signs our checks. They can do whatever the heck they want because that's how the employer-employee relationship works. So I'm not surprised. It sucks because, I mean, I'm a fortunate one. I'm only 25 and I don't have much overhead in terms of my life. I don't have a mortgage to pay, but there's so many guys who rely on this. And this is, even if they are fiscally responsible and financially literate, like they set up their budgets based on what the contract that they signed, and to have it all be upended is tough. So I feel for that more than anything.
100%. And Justin, so does this change your view on how things are going? Does this delay in the deadline moving mean that we're getting closer to an actual deal, or how do you see it?
Ooh, dare I say, man, it makes me feel a little positive. And I know all of you guys and the players, the membership overall has been so patient. But I feel like the fact that the deadline got pushed, and based on people that I've talked to on both sides, they were only going to push that deadline if indeed they felt like they were making progress towards the potential season. So I feel like what we're all waiting on here, and it was the same with the Toronto Blue Jays, is the Canadian government. Like, either, I was going to say, shit or get off the pot, but make a decision, right? And let the league know, so then its players and everyone else involved can make decisions with what to do with their lives, because they left the Blue Jays scrambling at the last minute to find a home. And I feel like the same situation could play out with the CFL and its players, employees, everyone involved for the league, that maybe they do make a decision to give some sort of money, because I think there's a few different ways they can do it. But everyone's going to be scrambling to try to get to Winnipeg and get a season in among, as you guys well know, players trying to be in top shape and perform at a high level.
Right. Where does that stand, as you know? Because I'll go to you, Nate, because, companies like the CFL, when they ask for money, it's looked at by the public as, how could they give them the money? But we all know it happens in our society. Companies, businesses get money all the time from the government. So, Nate, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because, like, I think the thing that jumps into people's heads when you start talking about pro sports is that people just want to attach some, I'm trying to find the right word, They try to attach some sort of meaning to it as if it's greater than life, as if it's not just a career, as if it's like everybody that's involved in it somehow lives in Hollywood Hills or, you know, in Malibu or something like that. It's like, I mean, we all know that's not a real reality in most professional football, in most professional sports leagues. You know, there's the main 3 or 4 or 5 that, you know, do have those massive, you know, grandiose lifestyles attached to it. But there's pro leagues around the world that are so very different, and that doesn't mean that they're any less impactful to the culture of the countries, which is one whole side of this equation about why I think the government would be inclined to help. And there's also the other side of like, what has the banking institution ever done for you other than keep your money aside? But no one ever bats an eye. Or like in the restaurant industry, like I know massive multi-million-dollar corporations that are getting 75% of their wage covered to have servers on their patios and all that and do anything. It's like, what has that company ever done for you? Well, if that restaurant decided, if Jack Ashley's went away and vanished in the thin air, like your life would be no different. But I think in a lot of cases, if the CFL up and vanished, like people's lives would, especially the fans and people connected to it, there would be something that has changed. There'd be a missing wall. I mean, how many years have we had the Grey Cup? So people attach sports, they look at everything from a sports standpoint, I think from a very different lens than they would with any other business. But businesses get bailouts all the time. They get government funding all the time. And the big thing I think for people's mind is that so many of the people coming in are American, but that EI check, I mean, we've all seen the check after a game. That unemployment insurance, I think that stuff comes out no matter what, no matter whether you're born in Texas or Barbados or Jamaica or Canada. So it's like people, they misconstrue what it means to be a pro athlete and what it means to be a sports league, but it really is just a business. And I think if people can detach their preconceived notions from it and realize that it's no different than bailing out, you know, Starbucks or Jack Ashley's or this, that, and the third, then like, why wouldn't the money come through if it's feasible and if it's responsible?
Right. And Justin, what would you say is the holdup right now from the government's point of view in giving the league money?
To be quite honest, I think it all has to do with public relations. It's how they're going to be viewed. And I think they're trying to feel that out in terms of, is it going to benefit us and keep, let's say, Justin Trudeau in office potentially the next time the voters go to the polls, or are people going to be upset that they give it out? A lot of people will point out that there was just the WE scandal where Trudeau, you know, was claimed to have given millions and millions of dollars to essentially his family. So I think Nate makes a lot of great points there that people forget a lot of times, that, you know, athletes live this pro lifestyle, but they pay taxes wherever they play. And that includes the American players in the CFL as well. So I get the sense that the holdup from government is, all right, can we fit them into any of the programs that we already have? But they've gone about that, I think, in a number of ways. CERB doesn't work for every single CFL player, and the CEWS, the Canadian Emergency Wage Subsidy, doesn't yet fit the CFL player. So I'm thinking the Canadian government is looking at those options. Can they find a way to amend the program and get the players in the CEWS? Or is there something like the Business Development Bank of Canada that they can get some money from to get to them? But I do feel like Nate hit it on the head, man, that you guys pay taxes just like everybody else, and your business or your employer that you guys work for, essentially in the situation, has been impacted by COVID-19. So why shouldn't you be entitled to some sort of financial aid?
Yeah, exactly. And it's funny when you see on social media when people are asking for money, all the comments of people are like, no, you guys don't deserve it, blah, 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 blah. It's so funny, the public sentiment that out with CFL is that they don't understand that we do pay taxes like everybody else. We're a business just like Nate said, at Starbucks or whatnot. But, you know, this week it was mentioned that Winnipeg was chosen as the hub city. Juwan, I know you're big on player health and safety. What kind of things would you like to see in place before you feel safe entering that bubble?
For me, it's not necessarily what I would want to see in place, other than, you know, I heard that we'd get tested once and then not get tested again or something like that. And for me, it's just the grand scheme of things. You know, there's multi-million-dollar leagues that were planning on a bubble scenario for about 3 months, 4 months, whatever it was, that have more money than the CFL, and that's just the reality of the league that we play in. And for me, it's the fact that we just picked a hub city, and we're in week 7 or whatnot, and they already had a plan set in place for 3 months, meaning the more money. So now for me, it's kind of like, well, if we do end up in a bubble scenario, how much of it has been planned and has it been rushed? And are we putting guys' health at risk, whether it be the virus or even giving guys time to prepare for a season? Because gyms, I don't even know if gyms are open yet, especially in the GTA.
They're not.
Yeah, so for me, it's just how much thought has gone into the actual bubble plan when we just picked a hub city this week?
Yeah, no, that's a fair question, and I have so many questions about the bubble. Justin, first, what is there any kind of insurance being talked about for guys that have a high risk and can't participate in the bubble that are under contract?
Well, those are iterations that they need to work through, man, that the CFLPA is talking about with the CFL, that what happens if somebody contracts the virus and can't play the rest of the season? Are they guaranteed their salary? Or as you said, is there insurance, health insurance to take care of them? Those are still to be figured out between the league and the players.
Okay. And yeah, so I'm sure all those things definitely need to be figured out. What realistically is the turnaround like? You think we can start, we have a date set, okay, we're going to play, we get to go ahead, and how long before we can actually get to our first game?
Man, if you guys look at the time schedule that's sort of in front of us, right? You have to isolate in your home city for 14 days potentially, and then 7 days when you get there. So let's just say with all the travel and just even getting settled, that'll probably take about a month. And that's not even counting the time it takes to coordinate all of the logistics to get everybody there, right? So let's say that's the month of August. Then you get there and hopefully you guys can have some sort of a training camp, because you don't want to have any of those soft tissue injuries or otherwise to hold any guys back from the season. So, I really think the absolute deadline has to be the end of July, because you're talking about August to essentially quarantine everyone, get them to Winnipeg, have a training camp, and maybe you're playing by mid or late September at the latest to get the 6-game season in, and then ideally play your Grey Cup in December before the Christmas weekend. So to me, it's really about next week.
Another hot button topic is pay. I want to know from you guys, Nate and Juwan, what were you guys' first thoughts when you heard 33%?
The pragmatist in me is like, I get it. Logically, it makes sense. And I feel like it's one of those things where the league knows that they're not going to be cash flush this year, that they're taking these large hits. They're just trying to make sure they can do what they can to survive in public opinion, all these different things, and make sure the bank account and the ledger at the end hopefully have something close to green at the bottom. So it's like you throw this number, it's like you're playing 30% of games. That's the very minimum they could possibly have offered us, right? Like there's no way they could have justified to be like 25 for 30% of games. They knew that. It was like, let's get them the very minimum so that every average Joe is out, or every Joe, every person who's not involved in the league, I like to call it Opie Gas Can Twitter. Everybody is like, oh, of course. I mean, you do 33% of the work, you get 33% of the pay. So they found the number. Like they found the base. They said, this is what we can 100% get by, and everybody in the public will say, yeah, that makes sense. But that just attaches itself to all reality, as we know. It's like, I mean, it's a 6-month program, usually what you're training for and all stuff. For a piece of information, my grocery bill usually weekly was like $175 a week, just so I can, eat a steak in the morning, all these different, like, people don't attach us. That's now been strung out. Most of us pay a strength coach. Most of us do all these other things that are attached to it. Like you can't work, you could be working underneath. That's like, you can't work a full-time job really while you're doing it, because like, you're waking up at 7. I was trying to do 2 a day, all these different things. So it's like, the pay thing is just a slap in the face to me, to be honest. Like, it's very obviously, to me, it's transparent. It's like, let's do everything we can to make sure that they look like they're the bad ones, and they say no. This is the league talking. And we'll give them the very, very, very minimum of what we should, or what we could, when we all know that it's so much more than that.
Juwan, we know that staff, scouts, and coaches, executives, they're making 80% of their salaries. What do you think about that, opposed to us making 33%?
Well, for me, when they said 33%, I literally was trying to think of what 33% of Juwan Brescacin looked like on the field. Like, how do I justify going 100% to win and, give everything I got, especially coming off an injury and doing 2 a days, basically rehabbing and training since December, it's July now, and you guys offer us 33%, while coaches are getting paid 80% of their contracts, and they're not working out. They're not, the ones on the field putting their body on the line. And granted, that's not what coaches do. Right. But at the end of the day, they're still getting paid, even though there's no product on the field and there's no season happening. But we're training, trying to stay mentally locked in, physically in shape. And you guys offer us 33% of our contract. So I honestly, I felt like it was disrespectful to even have a number that low. Granted, it was for 6 games, but I feel like if you really value the players and the product that you're putting on the field, you would not offer them 33% unless you're just like, here, we need football. We don't care what it looks like. We just need guys to play.
Right. Justin, I'll go to you now. Was the 33% a tactic in order to, get the players a little upset, get them up in arms, and then at the last minute come up to maybe 50%, offer some ratification, then get guys all excited to play, then knowing that they're going to lower the salary cap the next year? What do you think the 33% meant? Has there anything changed as of today, or anything you've heard as of that moving?
Natey, you hit the nail on the head, man. You're a veteran of the league, as are the other guys on the call. You know how it works with the CFL. They don't treat you guys very well, and when it comes down to any CBA deadline, maybe they up the offer a little bit, but they try to go in with the bare minimum. And the key to me is that it's 33% of base salary and performance bonuses. That doesn't take into account roster bonuses, the unpaid off-season bonuses that the league stopped paying. I believe it was somewhere in the March-April range. And also the bonuses that overall are tied to guys' contracts that are just a large number of it. They're talking just base pay and performance bonuses. So any of you guys go over 1,000 yards, you might have that in your contract where you get a nice bonus, but you don't get any of the other ones tied to your contract. So in reality, the general public thinks, oh, well, it's 33% of the contract overall, but it's not. Let's take Mike Riley, for example. He has, I believe, somewhere between a $300,000 to $400,000 reported pass bonus. Well, that's not covered in base salary or performance bonuses. So he's not getting 33% of his pay. Now, the quarterbacks are in another echelon, right, but still for every guy, I just don't understand how you can offer 33%. And I do think the league is playing out that tactic that in the back of their mind, from what I've heard, they're going to, at the 11th hour, once they know if the Canadian government is in or not, or for how much, they're going to come back to you guys, the players, and say, well, let's bump it up to 50% and dangle some sort of a ratification bonus to get a vote to happen quickly. So I think that's the game plan from the CFL side.
Yeah, I have a question. Sorry,
yeah,
just a question for you, Justin. Why do you think the 2021 CBA is being talked about right now when we have no clue what's going on for 2020? Why do those two things go hand in hand?
To me, Juwan, all that says is, I hate saying this, but just a dirty tack from the league to try to get you guys to go down in a situation where clearly there's a lot of players who depend on that salary. Although I think a lot of guys have sort of moved on and are doing some sort of off-season job to bring in income while you guys wait. But I think what they're doing is saying, hey, we think the players are desperate right now. Let's offer them 33% to get on the field. And oh, by the way, we'll tie it to 2021 so we can lower the salary cap that's been talked about to the $4 million range, was potentially one of their initial offers, let's say. So I think that's the reason. And again, man, I hate saying it and banging on the league, but it's just disrespectful to all of you guys and the work that you put in and the level that you've brought in the league, not only from a high elite level of play, which we're seeing more and more in the NFL, but more television ratings, which equaled more television dollars in the latest TSN contract.
Yeah.
It's tough, Justin, because I don't think this time it's going to work quite as well, because the CFL has been known to do that in past CBA negotiations, but this has gone on so long that guys have, like you said, have moved on or doing other things, or kind of put their focus elsewhere. I want to ask you before we get on, but what do you anticipate the quality of play being? Actually, I'll ask Juwan and Nate first, because like, you guys have been training, but you guys also are into other things, and we'll get into that later. But like are you at your peak performance? And do you think in the time that you're thinking that there's going to be season, are you going to be at your peak performance?
I say that I'm pretty much there. I've been training this whole time. Yeah. To say I'm at my peak, no, because I don't want to peak if there's a season and peak too early and then I go in and you know how it goes. But, I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of the star players in the league don't play. Yeah. If it's because they had enough money saved up from last year or their careers or, they have side hustles, they have businesses that they're running and, we're at the end of July and if you haven't started thinking about what you're going to do after football, I feel like that's kind of a problem because you see how the league is moving. And if we didn't have a season, like, what are you going to do? Right. If you haven't thought about that by now, I think that's a problem in itself. So I think that, this tactic that they're using right now it might be counterproductive to what they really want to do because guys are kind of moving on. But, going back to what he said, if a lot of the better players don't play this year, you're going to have a lot of guys that are not familiar with the game and have, a short period of time to figure out CFL football. Mm-hmm. And it could impact the product that you put on the field. Right. So you see it with training camp, right? There's guys that come in that are, name players that played in the NFL or great college players, and then they come and they can't learn the playbook. They can't get used to the style of play when you already have your veterans there that know what's going on. So I think it could impact the product on the field, but at the same time, people are going to watch because, sports have been missed.
100%. I know you've been working out. I know Juwan's working, but I also know a handful of people that have moved on mentally and are not working out. What do you think the quality of play will be?
Yeah, it's interesting to me. I'm not 100% sure. I feel like so much of it you can just do. You can come in cold when you play it, as long as you've been doing this for 20 or so years, playing the sport you love. But there's something to be said about just how long it takes to get into mid-season form. I mean, the term is mid-season form for a reason. Those classic battles on Labor Day between Hamilton, Toronto, and Edmonton and Calgary and Winnipeg, Saskatchewan. It's like those are such great games because people have built up to that. Just jumping into a season cold, getting off a plane, and like we talked about, like Justin mentioned, 14 days in isolation, 7 days over there. That's 21 days in theory without being able to go even see your strength coach, or find a buddy to throw you a football on a dirt grass field. Like, to say that the products, like anybody that says the product on the field is not going to be hurt, I think is disillusioned about what goes into football. And then also just like Juwan touched on, like football and training camp. If fans saw film of football the first couple of days of training camp versus what it looks like, by week 8, it looks like Pop Warner to pros that have finally figured it out. So it's like, everybody knows football knows this, like you can't fake it. And no amount of individual training like makes up for the fact that a team has to figure it out. Like think about like the team I was with last year, Ottawa, like they have a whole new offensive staff and a whole new player to learn. I'm sure there's plenty of plenty of teams around the league that are in the same situation. I think Saskatchewan with Coach Moss going there. Like, they have entire new, Toronto, exactly. They have entirely new playbooks, and Edmonton too, actually. So it's like, you can't discredit how big of an impact that is, and it's going to be impacted. And I think guys are aware of that. And like Juwan said, I can see that being part of the reason too why big name players, like, you wouldn't want to attach your name to subpar play. If I'm the reigning MOP in a Brandon Banks, like, why would I want to attach my name to an on-field product that's not me when they could screw up our CBA and I'm going to have to renegotiate next year anyways? Like, stay far away from that and be remembered for the great stuff you've done.
100%. And Justin, is there concern around the league that the play is going to be subpar or is going to suffer, injuries are going to happen? Or guys missing out? What's the concern level in the league, or they just want to get back football and worry about the rest later?
The CFL, the league office in particular, they just want to play, right? Or they want to make it seem that way at least. And I feel like, though, you talk to coaches and general managers, they understand exactly what you guys are talking about and saying, look, we can't just throw a young guy up from the United States put him in the lineup, as you guys mentioned, some named players. Like Johnny Manziel struggled up here mightily, and he even sat on the bench for a little bit. It wasn't a long time, but a little bit. So that's an example I think that a lot of people could understand and clearly watched and saw. You got to have the high caliber veteran players, just like you guys all three are. Your start, obviously, the quarterbacks, Mike Riley, Bo Levi Mitchell, Cody Fajardo. Those guys need to be on the field. Brandon Banks, to draw those types of TV ratings. If they're not there, the play suffers for sure. And the CFL needs to be careful that, let's say hypothetically this all does go forward, and you have a number of stars opt out like Brandon Banks has done, because as Nate said, you don't want to be attached to a poor level of play. Well, the league needs to be careful that publicly they don't get attached to that as well, because there's been times, especially earlier in the years, where people have talked about they feel like the level of play is down. I felt like that was a higher level of defensive football at times, but the league's got to be very careful about that the timeline is shrinking so much that if you don't give the athletes the proper time to get ready, and Nate mentioned as well, 21 days potentially in isolation where you can't touch a weight or run a pattern or catch a ball or throw a ball or anything like that. And then you're going to be able to be expected to go out and perform at the highest possible level. Like the level of CFL ball that has become well known, even outside of Canada, in the United States now, and we're seeing it more and more sort of trickle into the NFL, is because the athletes have that time to get ready and put their bodies through that year-round training to be ready, as you guys well know. So the CFL league office needs to be very careful here, and that's why a decision has to be made soon.
Absolutely. Moving on to another topic, another hot button topic. The Edmonton Football Club recently announced they changed their name. Nate, we were both on Edmonton. We both have a new understanding of what that name means and everything entails. You happen to write an article with an Inuit leader, a Nook leader, within McLean's magazine. What was the coolest thing that come out of that? What did you learn that you can share with us?
Yeah, absolutely. So the article is from Natey Red, leader of the ITK. He's the president, I should say, the elected president of the ITK, Inuit Therapy. I'm probably going to butcher that name. I'm still working on it. But yeah, he's one of the most intelligent people I've ever encountered. I met him at a dinner, or I should say, a social distancing event at Minister McKenna's house here in Ottawa. And just hearing him talk, it was just like mind blowing. He's super stoic and quiet, and like every time he talks, you just like grip the wall. Like, wow, that was the smartest thing I've ever heard. And just the perspective he has from battling this issue for so long was just mind blowing to me, because I think about in a lot of ways he's a civil rights leader, right? Like him fighting for Inuit rights, for Nook rights across Inuit and Nunavut is like it's very literally a civil rights issue. So I picture leaders that we can all think of. We picture Malcolm X, we picture Martin Luther King or Fred Hampton. Like you picture them having to argue with like the NBA to be like, can you change the name the Alabama Jim Crows? Like that would never happen. Like, and this is sort of my closing point in the whole thing, because of like it came to me organically just listening to him talk, and how like some of the things that resonate with me was like, as Black individuals, three of us here, like we know that our people have been one of the most subjugated and dehumanized in Western society for hundreds of years, 400 or so to be exact. And even still, with all of that, nobody would ever consider making a slur, even if only 33%, even if 25% of Black people thought it was a slur, nobody would ever allow for a team name to have that name. Right. If 1 in 4 Black people were like, that kind of offends me. Not even like, wow, I'm going to go bomb my eyes on crime, but even if we were just like, that's offensive to me, people would be like, yeah, you're right. And they would burn down the facility if the name didn't change. And this has been a name for over 100 years, with the claims that it somehow is trying to uplift or celebrate, but it's like, now we're also just putting some fake lenses on what history is, because in 1897 or whatever it was, I can't imagine that they were just entirely super woke in Edmonton, Alberta in 1897 in regards to how they treated the thoughts of Inuit people.
I don't mean,
I guess that's a pretty a revised history as far as I'm concerned. So that was the thing that stuck out the most to me, was just like how ridiculous this conversation is to even have. And the thing that he said, which I know many people have been saying through the Black Lives Matter movement and all that, is like it's not the place of the people who are setting the culture to tell people that are racialized what racism is. It's their job to listen to what's racist. Like, and the fact that Inuit people for so long have had to say this, and that everybody just expects because, you know, they handpick one or two leaders in the West. That they said it, that it's just everyone's a monolith and they're all the same. That like, it was mind blowing to me and mind opening. And I honestly felt guilty for a while. Like I really did sit there for 2 years and say next to nothing about it. So it was pretty cool.
Yeah, Justin, just going to you, you know, for me, thinking about it and thinking about how long it took and how they kept pointing to consensus to say that, oh, we have this study, we went out there, we talked to these leaders, handpicked leaders here and there. But at the end of the day, there are still people that were outraged by the name. Money spoke. The sponsor said that they weren't going to continue to sponsor the team if something wasn't changed. Was it a case of money speaking in this situation, or was there something deeper to spike the name change so quickly?
No, it definitely was. If you see the Edmonton Football Club's, let's say, statements before and after the sponsors essentially delivered an ultimatum, Behar Direct and Sports Interaction was the second one, they completely changed. They had said that they weren't going to change the name. And then all of a sudden, a couple weeks later, especially after the Behar Direct ultimatum, they said, we're accelerating the process of looking at potentially changing our name. So even though the EE football team, as they're known now, wants to say, well, it wasn't one specific event, to me, it was all about the money, that those sponsors finally delivered the ultimatum. And then at the same time, obviously, you had the NFL's Washington franchise change their name. So all of the focus was then on Edmonton. There was 500 media people on that press conference. It was virtual, but to listen to the reasons behind the name change when President Chris Presson was talking about it. So to me, that tells you the amount of sort of criticism that was being levied at the team for keeping the name. And Nate laid out so many great points, man, that even though there was no consensus, there were still a lot of outspoken individuals that are in UC that, to be quite frank, I have very much of a small background of knowledge on them that were saying this is a derogatory term. So they should have changed it to me years ago, but ultimately it came down to money. It's too bad they weren't proactive about it.
Yeah, it is. It's a huge missed opportunity for sure. And Justin, before you get out of here, I'm going to open it up to the fellas to ask you a couple questions that they may have. But we've been talking about it on this podcast, and it seems like it's all negative. Is there any positives out of this? Is there anything that we can look forward to? Is there anything that can lift the spirits of CFL fans or even us?
Man, I feel like there's progress to be made. And the one maybe benefit that can come out of everything that's going on around the CFL right now is the league office can get its finances in order, that they can look at it, restructure it. Now, I don't think that should necessarily come out of the salary cap. And the coaches and general managers and scouts have already felt that a little bit. But I think what it should do is make the owners and the league, number one, and maybe most importantly, really look at the finances of how they are spending their money and sort of count every dollar and be careful with it. And number two, I think the biggest learning experience here is that the CFL over the years has essentially been 9 different franchises doing what's best for them. But the reason that the other leagues, Major League Baseball, the NFL, the NBA, the National Hockey League, have been so successful and grown into enormous, gigantic, multi-million-dollar, billion-dollar entities is because they've worked together. So the teams need to come together and stop looking out for their best interest, but look out for the league's best interest, and also obviously all the people that fall under that umbrella, the coaches, the scouts, general managers, and I think most importantly, the guys that put the product on the field and the players. So I feel like those are 2 main benefits that could come out of this.
100%. Thank you for sharing that. Juwan, you got any questions? So are you, Juwan?
I guess my only question I really have is, honestly, what do you, if you were to give a percentage that we were going to play, what would that percentage be?
$1 million question right out the bat.
I don't waste time.
Might as well get straight to it, right? Yeah, I get asked it a lot when I'm doing, radio spots or interviews around the country. And I've sort of been pegging it around, 25, 20%, kind of depending on the day. I feel like it's really low because even if we get some Canadian government funding, there's so many health and logistics to work through. And as an example, right, you guys have all seen it with the NBA bubble or Major League Baseball. There's still players testing positive for coronavirus. So what's the threshold there in terms of getting through the season? Now, I think being Canada will certainly help that because it's much different than, I don't even want to name the president down in the United States and his idea towards it. But I still think it's really low. I mean, if we get a CBA going and then the Canadian government signs off on it and maybe puts in some money, then it bumps up. But I still peg it that the chances of it happening are likely not. I hate saying it.
Yeah, Justin, you mentioned we're in Canada and numbers are lower. But these NBA and NHL bubbles are like $100 million day type bubbles. What are we looking at for the CFL in terms of how much this bubble is going to cost per day?
Yeah, and that would be much different up here because I don't know if I can put together a strict number for you there, but public health is going to cover a lot of the testing. And then you have the $2.5 million that the province of Manitoba put up. And that's essentially going to go to some of the lodging costs and the food because they want that money put right back into the economy there in Winnipeg, which makes a ton of sense. So, I've heard some teams sort of banning about numbers where they feel like it's going to cost, between 2 and 3 million per team to run their team's bubble essentially. So that's kind of all encompassing. But let's say, for example, a comparison, I had been told that the Buffalo Bills, for example, are setting aside $3 million just for testing. Now, obviously they're testing every day, but you have the Bills setting that aside just for testing for one season. And you have CFL teams talking about between 2 and 3 million, depending how the funds get worked out for an entire bubble situation for a 6-game season plus playoffs.
Yeah, the further you dig into it, it doesn't add up the way we want it to. Nate, you got any questions before Justin heads out of here?
Yeah, mine's it's a tough one for you. But what do you think your iPhone screen time's been at since you started breaking all those noise?
It depends how many players are getting after me on Twitter, like John Bowman the other day. Much respect, though. No, I got lots of respect for John, and I understand that. Definitely the iPhone screen time is way up, man. Like, as much as I try to want to be unplugged at points, to be quite honest, I'd like to give my girlfriend some time when I'm not looking at my phone either. It's been way up. And I feel like sometimes, people kind of don't understand how difficult it is to decipher info and put it together and what does this mean? Because you can't just throw anything out there, right? In this Twitter world, I feel like, any sort of Tom, Dick, and Harry thinks, well, I can just throw anything up on the internet. But as you guys well know as players, there are intricate details, but you can't just put that out there. Nate's gotten into this with some of the articles he's written as well. Juwan's got the background from what you studied in university. And Natey, you're doing the podcast, that when you say something, it has meaning. So when reports come out, I've worked very hard to verify that type of information. So I just want to throw that out there, but I kind of want to turn around the tables on you guys and maybe ask you guys some questions because you've been waiting so patiently. And hey, I hope this is cool.
Yeah, 100%.
I'll go to the host first right away. You've obviously started the podcast project, but in terms of you or maybe even other guys that you've talked to, what percentage of the player membership, let's say right now, is doing other jobs and bringing in money other ways and has maybe even written off 2020 like Brandon Bank?
Yeah, that's a great question. And honestly, in my circle of friends and see all the CFL guys, literally every single person is doing something else to bring in income. So I can only speak of the people that I know. Literally everybody I know is doing something else and kind of not shifted focus, because in the back of their minds, guys still want to play. Guys love football, but they're stopped. They can't rely on the CFL. The CFL is proving that it's not something that they can, especially guys have families. You can't rely on something that's a maybe. It's life or death for us. So when it's that kind of stakes at hand, you have to do what's best for your family. So I would say 100% of the guys I know are doing something else to bring in another form of income. And if you think about a regular off season, we're training for 4 or 5 months to get ready for a season. And by the end of that 4 or 5 months, guys are dying to get on the field. Guys are dying to stop working out and stop lifting weights, because we're athletes. We're not, weightlifters, right? So we're going on like 8-9 months of off season. It's a lot to ask guys to continue to work out and train and not have any income coming in, or not even any income guaranteed to come in. That's the part that's hurting a lot of guys and making a lot of guys shift focus. So yeah, Juwan,
what's your question?
I'll go to Juwan next. Actually, I'll set you up. Sorry, I'll hit Juwan quick because I'm curious. You're in a unique situation, Juwan, where you signed with a new team and yet you still haven't been able to get on the field for them. What's that process been like? Do you feel like you're comfortable with the playbook, reviewing it in terms of maybe doing some Zoom meetings and stuff? And how do you feel it's going to be if, let's say, hypothetically, you get on the field in 2020 with the Argos and are trying to pick everything up and learning the nuances and developing a rapport with the new quarterback?
Yeah. Honestly, I just want to play now. Like Natey said, like, we're not weightlifters. I've been rehabbing. I'm 100%. I've been working out, doing my field work. For me, it's been the opposite. I feel like I've been almost doing too much to get ready for the season that might not be happening. But as far as the playbook, it's pretty much what I've been used to my whole career. So I think where I come into play is teaching the guys on the field, catching guys up and helping them learn the playbook faster. We were having Zoom meetings during this time, and when we were allowed to, and it was just like a refresher for me, the playbook. And I think at the end of the day, if everybody's on the same page when we get on the field, that it should go pretty smoothly. We're all professionals. We've all played CFL football for the most part, even though we have a new team. But I was excited to be in the locker room with Behar, be in the locker room with Natey, and some of the other guys, Dejan. And that's another aspect that's kind of been disappointing with this, because me and Natey, we spoke about being teammates a couple of years ago, and now that we have the chance, a pandemic happens. So, this is terrible timing, but I'll be ready is pretty much what I'm trying to say in 2020. But if it doesn't happen, it'll just give me more time to be ready for 2021.
Nice. And I'll hit Nate real quick, because he's turned into a bit of a media superstar here, man. Uninterrupted, CBC, writing for Canadian Magazine. I'm curious, Nate, what's your next project that you're working on?
Wait, before Nate answers, Justin, you said he's a superstar. He's charging me to be on this podcast. Go ahead, Nate.
Men's got Asian.
Phone bills don't pay themselves, okay? What's next? I mean, I got a couple ideas. Gonna be working with Ryan Johnson with CBC Sports. We have something slowly cooking. It's what's fumigating? It's what do you do with steak? Marinating. That's the one. I got that, and then there's also something small. I don't know if it's small. I'm chatting with the guys over at Uninterrupted about doing. I kind of taken parts of what I did with the first essay to put the movement and how we can kind of repurpose it, repackage it a little bit, which I'm not going to give too much away, but I think Dr. Seuss type style, and that which would be super awesome to get to create. But I think the thing that I'm most excited about is we're waiting to hear back from confirmation. But I did a classroom session with some grade 5, 6 kids, out of Calgary, Alberta, and I've spoken with some people in the school district there about formalizing some presentation stuff and being able to actually give presentations on race and diversity and all those sort of things to students when school gets back in September, whether it's over Zoom or in person. And I think that's the thing that gets me the most excited, because that's the stuff I almost swore. That's the stuff that actually matters the most, I think, is that right there. And that stuff gets me motivated daily to keep this momentum going, so that I hopefully can get to more kids and make a real impact. Because as you know, us old people, we don't change. You can't teach an old dog new tricks.
100%. Justin, any more questions for us?
No, man, I'm good. I've probably taken up too much of your time. I can fire a bunch more, but I appreciate it being on with you guys. It's been fun. It's different to hear. I think what people really need to understand is the players and what they're going through right now, because there's so much uncertainty. You guys have laid it out. 80% of the salaries being paid to league employees, and the players just aren't being treated like partners right now, man. In my eyes, that has to change.
100%. And I appreciate you being on, kind of shedding light to, our kind of thoughts and our thought process and, things that we're going through, and give us, the insider facts, even if John Bowman doesn't appreciate it.
Yeah, that's all right. I'll talk it out with him.
All right. So, Justin, I know you got to go. You're a busy man. I'm going to let you go. I'm just going to ask these guys a little bit about what they're doing, post-football, not post-football, but in the quarantine time, and And then we'll get back on together again. Once again, Justin, thank you so much for joining us, man. And I'm sure we'll be having you on soon because we got some news to talk about next week.
Most definitely, guys. Stay safe out there. Appreciate y'all.
All right. Take care, Justin. All right. Yo, so what do you guys take away from everything Justin gave us?
I mean, pretty much we kind of knew most of that stuff. So honestly, we're just still waiting on the CFL to tell us what to do.
Literally in the same spot we were in like 3 months ago, waiting on the government. But what I wanted to ask you about in this spot is, things that you guys been up to. Juwan, I know you started Black Dollars TO. Can you tell our listeners a little bit more about that, where they can get more information about that and your inspiration to start that?
Yeah, so first of all, you can get more information or check out the page on Instagram. We don't have a Twitter, and the website's coming soon, but the Instagram is Black Dollars TO, and it's an initiative that I started with my two childhood friends after the George Floyd killing in Minnesota. And basically, we just wanted to, use our talents and our passions to kind of bring awareness to Black-owned businesses in Toronto and the GTA. And we're sharing Black-owned businesses and telling stories of entrepreneurs and just trying to really have people realize that their buying power goes further than what they know. And we really preach conscious spending. So, when you go into a place or when you hire somebody to do a job, if you can help the Black community or if you want to help the Black community, these are your options. Yeah. And, we, like I said, we preach conscious buying, conscious spending, and, just that if you're looking for a way to support, we always say, supporting a Black business supports Black families, which supports the Black community. And it's just a circle that keeps going. So the more awareness we can bring to these businesses, I feel like, the more money that goes through these businesses, the more power Black people have to do what they want and, kind of level the playing field.
Yeah, when you first told me about it, I'm like, bro, you were onto something. And I thought it was a phenomenal idea, and you guys have executed it phenomenally. Where do you see it going from here? What's kind of the big picture idea for Black Dollars?
It's a good question. We haven't really, we haven't discussed it openly, but to not give too much away, we want to become a marketing company. And we want to change the content that's being pushed, everywhere, basically, and have, more Black entrepreneurs shown, and, not just athletes or rappers. And we kind of just want to change the landscape of how the Black community is viewed. And we're going to have a bunch of different initiatives along with Black Dollars Toronto, but right now that's our baby, and that's kind of what we're doing right now. But we're going to have a lot of different projects, and even on the page, we're going to start coming out with a lot of different content that people are going to be able to see and, form an emotional connection with.
That's awesome, man. And that's kind of the new age, and I'm happy you're taking that step. And quarantine has changed all of our views on things that we want to get into, and this positive football has allowed us the opportunity to pursue other things. So in a way, it's been positive. Nate, you are, like Justin said, a superstar. You've been doing a lot in this quarantine period, like you talked about earlier. What else are you into other than what else is going on? What else can you tell us? Because I know you got a lot of underground stuff going on.
So I mean, the most underground one that, like Juwan, I won't go into too much detail on, is they have founded a tech company, officially incorporated in April. It's been working on it since February. We're about a month and a half away from a large scale launch. We're going to start rolling out smaller phase stuff, which Juwan, by the way, will be chatting to. But that's essentially going to be a marketing platform for athletes and businesses and whatnot. Again, without going into many details, it's going to be an app and a web-based platform, but we're really excited about it. Right now, we're actually in a pre-accelerated program through Invest Ottawa's company. So it's sort of a 10-week course that brings you through all the stages of business where, as we go, we have an advisor who works with us for capital. So that's in a great spot. And then as COVID has, I don't want to say it's subsided, but as we progress in our phases, we're currently getting my Formula 11 football camps back up. Myself and my partner, Justin Howell, with Ottawa Redblacks, and then our third partner, sort of the guy in the back, making sure that the gears keep moving, is Ryan Kublik, who's with the Carlton Ravens. We're getting our camp going back again this year for August, and we have some bigger plans for us as the year passes on, but we're super excited. We actually haven't announced it. We haven't announced it yet, so I guess it's kind of us breaking it, I guess, in a way. But there'll be a lot more details coming out formally.
Love it. Breaking news on the Off-Ball podcast, baby.
Absolutely. So we're starting the Ottawa Fund. Sorry, I probably know the name. We're starting the Formula Fund for Ottawa youth. So what we're doing is we're building a scholarship program that we're going to give to graduating Black and Indigenous people of color who are leaving Ottawa to go to school. That come from places with financial barriers, where there's experiencing financial barriers that are restricting their access to education. So we're looking to our conservative goal for this year. I'll just throw the number out there so I have to keep up to it, and I have to make sure we get there. Is between $8,000 to $10,000 that we plan on doing. So our hope is to be able to give a few $1,000s to kids. So every year they'll, all 4 years of undergrad, they'll be able to have a little stipend that'll hopefully help and ease that struggle for a lot of people. So that's like my baby at the moment. I couldn't be more excited about it. We're going to start really marketing that and going to pursue some more donations. But I know we're going to be able to secure a lot of it ourselves. So we're excited, and we know that it's going to be a great thing. But it feels good to finally get to that spot.
100%, man. Justin was lying, man. You're a superstar. Juwan, you are a superstar. Happy to see you guys doing some great things like we always talked about. And it's funny, they always say, you're an average of your 5 closest friends, and having you two part of my little circle, it means I'm in the right circle. So I appreciate you guys for coming, taking the time, joining me here. We will definitely have to do it soon. It was very fun, and I'll talk to you guys very soon. Appreciate it, guys.
Thanks for having me in your circle.
I do an annual review of my circle, so you're good, man. So we'll see what you come up with.
5 years strong. Appreciate you.
Nate, later, buddy.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. All right, Joe. Thank you guys.